Hey kids, we're stuck recording this one on my phone, so please bear with me if things look weird or I suck at making eye contact. Opportunities to feel disgust in the modern world abound. But for some reason, the thing that really gets at me are these sophomoric articles that keep coming out where someone just complains about really inane things in their life, things that are completely unremarkable. The first time I noticed this was Lena Dunham's article where she complained about her Jewish boyfriend and compared him to a dog. And I think also that article where a girl recounts her extremely unremarkable date with Aziz Ansari falls in this category as well. We're just pelted with articles like these, even in allegedly prestigious publications. They detail inanities that wouldn't even warrant an entry in a personal diary for an ingenue a few generations ago. It's like, oh yeah, your date gave you white wine when you would have preferred red. Like, cool story. Nobody cares. No one cares. Not even your own mother cares about this stuff. So why are you putting this stuff out there? It's like, aside from the fact that a lot of it's violations of privacy as well, which is unconscionably rude. But at the end of the day, it barely even rises to the level of dirty laundry. It's maybe like mildly smelly socks. Like everyone has smelly socks. Nobody cares about your smelly socks. Like, please just keep your smelly socks to yourself. And yet this keeps happening. So why is there a platform available to these people? And then on top of that, why do these people exist? Why do people who are this combination of like narcissism and like baseness, why does this exist? And it's common enough that we keep seeing these streams of articles of people willing to write this kind of stuff and put this nonsense out there. So you know how it goes on this channel. I am always looking for deep roots to the cultural degradation that we're seeing all around us. In this case, I think a case can be made that the roots of this issue trace back to the entry of women into the workforce in the 1970s in the US. So, long story short, working mother is an oxymoron. Mothering is a full-time job for at least a few years, while the best case scenario with maternity leave is 3 or 4 months. So when we effectively forced a generation of would-be mothers into the workplace, we ensured that children would be neglected to some degree. I think even the biggest working mother skeptic at the time, though, probably did not realize how dire the consequences of this social shift would be. They could fill a whole series of video, and in fact, they will on this channel. But to the topic at hand, so trying to explain this phenomenon of people publishing articles about picking their own belly button lint. I see two major developmental failures, both stemming from maternal abandonment, that underlie this indicator of civilizational decline. The first relates to very early life. So compared to other species, human beings are all born prematurely. In order for our massive brains to make its way through a female pelvis, we're effectively born 3 months sooner than we should be. And consequently, a lot of neurological development, massive amounts of neurological development, take place during the first 3 months of life. Sometimes this is called the 4th trimester. What happens during this time has permanent and unchangeable consequences for the rest of life in certain areas. And one of those areas is empathy. Humans have a specialized type of neuron called a mirror neuron, which, as the name implies, is a brain cell that is dedicated to mirroring other people. As we grow up, those are the same cells that create our capacity for empathy, our ability to understand and appreciate the perspectives and experiences of other people. So during those first 3 crucial months outside the womb, our body is responding to our environment and trying to kind of adapt as it develops to give you the right tools you need to survive in that environment. More mirror neurons are produced the more time an infant spends looking at human faces, in particular at its own mother's face. So an infant who's been put in a daycare facility is not spending nearly enough time looking at faces and obviously isn't looking at mom's face at all. They're not going to grow enough of these mirror neurons in order to have healthy levels of empathy later in life. It's not a choice. It's not something that can be learned or corrected for later in life. It's a physical building block that underlies this psychical process that simply won't be there. In other words, all the software in the world cannot fix a hardware problem. But don't worry, it gets worse. So I'm sure you've heard it said, man is a social animal. I certainly heard that a lot, but I didn't really think until recently deeply about what that actually means. I really didn't appreciate the extent to which this is deeply, deeply true. So it's not merely that we happen to form groups or that we are happier or more likely to survive when we're organized into social systems. It's actually the very physical structures that underlie our consciousness that are in fact interdependent with other people. Mirror neurons are one such example. More recently, researchers have discovered an even more direct way that we really are all connected. So they've discovered that there's essentially a neurological net lying over our gut. And that responds directly to other people without involving the brain, therefore bypassing any higher functions. That means no consciousness, no option to ignore the signal, no choice about being connected to and to some extent dependent on other people. Another reason to be picky about the people you surround yourself with, by the way, but that's a topic for another day. The point here is that humans are not capable of self-regulation without a connection to other people. The physical basis for our psychical processes require a social input. It's why the relationship with a therapist is the key to psychotherapy, why alcoholics have sponsors, and why children shipped off to daycares and public schools grow up to be adults who can't regulate their own emotions. This often gets characterized as a lack of self-control, but it's worse than that. Willpower has its limits. It's easier to resist impulses when those impulses are weaker or fewer. A properly socialized person will appear to have greater self-control because their greater self-regulation means that there is less that needs controlling. The mental anguish of a poorly regulated individual cannot be addressed by will alone. Combine the two, the inability to empathize with a lack of self-regulation, and you get Generation Snowflake, a crop of emotionally unstable, dangerously narcissistic adults who, best case scenario, write whiny articles about their unsatisfying romantic entanglements. Worst case scenario, their instability turns into self-righteous violence against a world that fails to live up to their sense of entitlement. So you want to save the world? Save motherhood first. Okay, so you might have noticed I took a bit of a break there, both from making videos and responding to comments. So I am back now. I'm working through the comments as quickly as I can, which is not very quickly. So you may know if you follow me on Twitter or if you've been reading the comments, I was pregnant for most of this channel's history. Yes, I do actually try to live the stuff that I talk about on here. And so now I'm home with the baby and slowing my production way, way down to accommodate for that. So it's kind of a bummer because there's a lot of videos that I want to make on this baby brain topic, based on all the research that I did in preparation for parenthood, but they will come out eventually, so don't worry. And so, yeah, for those who've been complaining about too much cleavage, sorry, that's only gonna get worse because now I'm breastfeeding. And for those complaining about how messy my room is, good news, I am moving soon and I will have a proper studio set up at the new place. So for everyone else, thank you for sticking around, and feel free to catch me on Twitter between videos. It's a little easier to kind of log on quickly there and interact with some people, I guess, and post some stuff than it is to put together whole videos. Anyway, see you next time.